Remember this video? It's a video called Concrete Giraffes. It's made by the same guy who made Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged. It's basically a big parody of Marble Hornets and Slender Man in general, and it ends with this line.
Geez, a Slender Man movie? I guess Hollywood really is out of ideas.
Yep! That's about where we are now. Now this is nothing new for this channel. At this point it's a yearly tradition to review terrible Slender Man movies, but this is a whole new beast. Slender and Always Watching were not high-profile movies. I'm not even sure if they got a theatrical release that wasn't extremely limited. This is supposed to be a blockbuster horror movie made by one of the biggest film companies out there right now, Sony. Let's talk about Sony, because that's about half the reason I'm even making this video in the first place. Sony is probably the worst movie-making company that's currently still allowed to make movies for some reason. Now some of the movies they've made have actually been good, but the vast majority, especially the ones I've been aware of in recent years, have been awful and showcase their terrible business practices. Naturally, they've kept an iron-tight grip on the rights to Spider-Man and a good portion of the characters in his world. So when Marvel was finally able to strike a deal with them to get Spider-Man in their, usually, not garbage movies, they had to kind of awkwardly crowbar him into the middle of Civil War. How does Tony know that Peter is Spider-Man? That's kind of important and never explained. This culminated recently in Tom Hardy admitting that Sony cut out at least 40 minutes worth of his favorite content in the newest film on their roster at the time of this video's release, Venom. Some of the emails that have been leaked in regards to Sony's business approach to Spider-Man have been very telling. EDM, electronic dance music, is the defining music for millennials. Wondering if there's an EDM angle somewhere with Spidey. Snapchat just launched a story functionality. Getting invited into Spidey's Snapchat circle would be huge and very buzzworthy and cool.
Very cool.
That's just the tip of the iceberg. What's important to note in these emails is the sheer amount of money they expect from these Spider-Man movies in their wannabe cinematic universe. A bare minimum of $500 million on The Amazing Spider-Man 2, one of the worst superhero movies I've seen in recent memory, just to keep the future of the Spider-Man brand under their watch stable. And they expected $12 billion in profit over the course of about 5 years. Yeah, not income. Profit. These people are fucking insane. I promise I'm getting to Slender Man soon. Then, of course, we had Ghostbusters 2016. Yeah, I'm digging up this corpse now. Now, there's no proof of this, but I believe, and I'm not alone here, that Sony directly manufactured a controversy around this film regarding the casting choice of having a Ghostbusters team comprised entirely of women. Really, the movie just looked like shit from trailer 1, but the outrage culture is strong, and I guarantee Sony got their heads out of their asses and saw this as an amazing marketing opportunity. Go see this film. Show those basement-dwelling sexists a thing or two. What is confirmed is why they'd go to such lengths to try and push this movie so hard. They were kind of putting all of their non-spider eggs in this basket. Sony had an entire division of the company that would be dedicated to just Ghostbusters movies from here on out. They want a cinematic universe hard, and they were willing to drag out fucking Ghostbusters of all the franchises they had ownership of to try and make it happen. More leaked emails reveal that they were not only aggressive, in their words, in order to get Bill Murray on board with the movie in one way or another, but also that, like with Spider-Man, they're just fucking crazy. Everyone's crazy. in what I think could be a billion-dollar idea, recruits the ghosts of evil beings from other parts of the universe. Yes, ghost aliens. I promise I'm getting to Slender Man soon. And as a final nail in the credibility coffin, Sony announced, actually made, and then released the Emoji Movie. I feel like saying the title alone without context is enough to warrant this studio being burned to the ground, but there's at least a little more. Now, I don't know if this is directly because of Sony trying to push an agenda to sell tickets in the same fashion they did with Ghostbusters, but TJ Miller quit his role on the HBO show Silicon Valley to be a part of this movie, citing his reasons for leaving being promoting such heartwarming topics and themes as self-acceptance, the cautions of online harassment, and progressive feminism. Wait, what? That's a weird one considering the girl isn't even the main character of that movie. Again, he could totally be talking out of his ass and just coming up with whatever to keep the suits happy, or Sony could be putting words in his mouth to sell tickets to an audience that wouldn't have even looked this movie's way otherwise, an audience they have clearly tried to market to before. I'll let you decide. So, with all that out of the way, this should give you a clear indication of my mindset before going into this movie. I knew for a fact it was going to be bad, and it absolutely is. I've heard people say that they had hope for this movie going into it. People I greatly respect and admire.
I mean, I want to go into it with an open mind and...
I'm sorry, Adam, but an open mind is more than this movie deserves. I understand their optimism, but I actively wanted this movie to fail. It sounds shitty, I know, but god damn it, Sony. Stop being so fucking garbage with your movies and your business practices so I don't have to say that. You let Baby Driver crawl out of your studio and it was great. Why can that not be the standard? I hope this gives you all perspective on why I not only wanted this movie to fail and be terrible, but also why I didn't give Sony a single fucking cent in order to watch it. Because I know that single cent would have gone into the Creepypasta Cinematic Universe jar in their office were this movie to actually be successful, and I was not about to take part in any of that. So after all that beating around the bush, let's actually talk about this fucking movie. For the third, and probably final year in a row, here's a feature-length Slender Man movie. We start off in an average American public high school, where we meet our four main characters. There's the protagonist, Macaulay Culkin, and then there's Chol, Ren, and Stimpy. There's also Man Dude and Macaulay's sister. Her name is Sister. She only exists to add further tension to the plot in the third act and is absent for most of the movie. Man Dude only exists for the funniest scene in the movie. Anyways, the first portion of the movie doesn't really set anything up except the fact that these girls are friends. They might be kind of gothic or maybe a cult, and that Macaulay has a thing for Man Dude. There's some really terrible dialogue between our girl's gang and Man Dude's group.
Oh, I see. A circle jerk? Oh, guys, the dude bros in the natural habitat. Let's observe, shall we?
Why are you doing a Steve Irwin impression? Are you even old enough to remember who Steve Irwin is? In fact, there's some pretty terrible dialogue in general.
Twitter poll, if you could stay one age forever, what would it be? I say 30, it's like the height of sophistication.
No woman would ever say that. I'm gonna get it out of the way. This movie is full of little shit like this. Just tiny things that rip me out of the movie and destroy my immersion. We'll go over them as they come. So like 2 minutes in, the movie has decided it spent more than enough time establishing these girls as friends, and more importantly, that the group of dude bros is doing something tonight. So Macaulay rushes out of school, and we get probably the most miserably lit family dinner scene I've seen in my life. Like, the tone isn't dark yet or anything, but you'd be forgiven for assuming someone just fucking died. 1 minute later, it's been well established that Macaulay and Sister are sisters, despite having completely different eye and hair colors, and that Macaulay is on the track team. This has no impact on the plot whatsoever. Then Ren shows up and whisks Macaulay away to Stimpy's house, where her drunk dad is asleep on the couch. Why they didn't go to anyone else's house is beyond me, honestly. Why go to the house of the girl with an alcoholic father that you are being very careful not to wake up? Is it so that you can establish that he is in fact an alcoholic to set up an internal conflict with a character that has almost no characterization beyond this fact and set up a fake jump scare later on in the movie? Oh, and they're watching porn, I guess. Do girls do this? I didn't do this with any of my friends, guy or girl. I mean, they're not jacking each other's dicks off or anything, but even casually this seems kind of weird. Getting drunk is pretty normal for teenage girls, but I'm not so sure about the porn. So 6.5 minutes into the movie, they've already name-dropped Slenderman with basically no build-up except for how the dude bros they talked to earlier are apparently going to summon him? Have I made it clear that this movie's pace is fucking breakneck?
Certain accounts speak of a hypnotic power.
You want to give that line another take? Something that bugs me is that they use the term messed up for anyone whose mind has been influenced by Slenderman constantly. Even Chol reading this pretty dry and proper description of Slenderman just has the term messed up thrown in there, like whoever was writing the wiki article just couldn't think of something better to write. Then, as she is giving us this description, Stimpy is off just Googling the fucking video that is apparently used to summon him, and then they all just watch it. By the time it's over, by the time the monster has been summoned, we are not even at the 10-minute mark. What the fuck has happened to pacing? Also, what the hell is with the constant Illuminati symbolism in the video? Is Slenderman a Freemason? It's not like it's brought up again in the movie. It's just their attempt at making a spooky Ring-style cursed video. It's really telling when actual videos made by YouTubers with the same idea in mind wind up being 1,000 times scarier. So they finish watching the video and they all seem pretty traumatized by the whole thing. Especially Stimpy, who's out of it for the rest of her screen time in the movie. There's a weird dream sequence with Macaulay where the director actually gets to express themselves. And oh my god! What's wrong with your face? Then it cuts the whole gang going on a field trip to a cemetery. Bit grim, but okay, I would have voted for a water park personally. Also, this tour guide is so upbeat about giving this tour.
In 2004, it was put on the National Registry of Historical Sites, which was very exciting.
Let's consult the chart. There we go. Also, at this point in the movie, I started to notice this weird pattern or theme, I guess. There's some odd references to pregnancy in the movie. Like at that earlier miserable dinner scene, it's mentioned that a girl dropped out of track because she became pregnant. Here, Chol mentions that she threw up twice that morning, and Ren makes a joke that she's pregnant. And then later on, Macaulay has another weird dream sequence where she's pregnant with a bunch of branch tentacle things. The thing is, this has nothing to do with anything. This pattern of pregnancy comments and imagery has no impact on the story. It's not building up to anything, any kind of revelation. If this were in some kind of satanic cult movie where the demon is literally being incubated inside one of the girls, like in that one short from VHS 2, that would be one thing and it would actually be kind of cool. But here it's just weirdly out of place. Speaking of out of place, Stimpy decides she'd like to be placed out of this movie. Huh? Is that good? Is that good? Personally, I don't blame her, but this happens, and I'm not even fucking kidding, 3 minutes after they watch the video. You only have 4 girls movie. Even if you kill them off every 13 minutes, that's still not enough for feature length. So yeah, Stimpy just vanishes in the middle of the field trip and now she's gone from the movie. We don't even get to see her kidnapped or anything. She just stares longingly into the trees and then the next scene she's gone. It's not even clear that she's missing until people start talking about it and search parties are sent out. Hey, I recognize that stock police radio sound effect. Did you get that in the same place you get that stock doorbell sound effect from earlier? Later, Macaulay's at home with sister talking about Stimpy's disappearance.
I could stay home alone, you know. I'm old enough. Physical age, maybe.
Did you just call your sister a retard? One thing I'll say this movie does well is that it's actually pretty decent at showing the characters on the phones or computer reading or texting something in order to get information, and also give that information to the audience. Sometimes they'll read things out loud, but other times they'll just zoom in on the thing they're reading so you can read it too. It's always annoying when shows and movies try to be flashy with this kind of thing. I think Sherlock is the worst with this, where everything's zooming around their heads and flashing everywhere because the show is overproduced to all fuck. This is simple but effective. Then they start to hear noises in the house, and because this is a horror movie, we all know this isn't actually Slender Man, because we're apparently at the point in the movie where one of the main cast can straight up die, but not yet at the point where anything scary can actually happen. So it turns out the mysterious shadowy figure who has broken into Macaulay's house is none other than Stimpy's drunk dad trying to find his daughter. It does stand to reason that he might think his daughter's friends are hiding her somewhere, especially if he's not in a well state of mind due to alcoholism and general trauma from losing his daughter. This is fine with me. I'm just sick of needlessly ratcheting up the tension only for an underwhelming fake scare. The movie is not as bad as Always Watching in that regard though. Also, can I just say I fucking love this guy's performance here. He just turns up the grump dial to 11. Any freeze frame on his face here is pure gold. So he physically accosts two presumably underage girls after breaking and entering. Keep this in mind, this is important for later. So he's taken away by the police, and that's just kind of done with for right now. It cuts to the kids back at school talking to the dude bros, and can I just say that Ren would not be able to get away with wearing this jacket in a public high school. When I was going to school, girls couldn't even wear tops that showed their bra straps, but this one just has holes cut all over it. They discussed some shit, the dudes said that they were too scared to actually watch the summoning video, and Ren comes to the conclusion that Stimpy disappeared because they watched said video. It then cuts to nighttime to the girls apparently sneaking into Stimpy's house, and her dad is still there. Why? Macaulay says that he broke into her house last night. He physically assaulted two teenage girls after breaking and entering to their house. What, did someone pay bail for the town drunk? Point is, they distract him and snag Stimpy's laptop, which is sure to have some juicy clues on it. They look at some videos she watched before vanishing of some kids, and hey, right over there! Beyond that little girl's stock laughter sound effect. It's Slender Man. So he is in the movie. That's a leg up on Slender. Let's watch some more videos.
I am Slender Man.
You could not sound more bored saying that. Yeah, you've certainly convinced me. They look through a chat log Stimpy was having with someone named AlleyCat93. The same person who posted the summoning video to begin with, and who is now apparently helping people afflicted by the Slender Man? Stimpy's own video is in these chat logs, and look how high quality this film is. We're supposed to believe that this is taken on a smartphone at night in the middle of the woods? Look at the lighting, for fuck's sake. Ren starts up a chat with this person later on herself, and this is a minor nitpick, but I hate how they respond instantly to everything Ren posts. No time at all is taken to actually think and type out these responses, no matter how long they are. She talks to the girls the next day.
He gets in your head like a virus.
What kind of virus?
Like a computer virus that infects your hard drive, but instead of your hard drive, it's your brain.
Ren?
What? That's how normal viruses work too, you dumb fucking... She explains that if they sacrifice something meaningful and perform a ritual, they can bring Stimpy back. So that night, they head out into the woods to do just that. So each of the girls brings something of emotional importance to them in the woods, and they each destroy them. It kinda reminds me of the Everman hybrid trial that involved burying something of emotional importance to you. This concept would be better appreciated if both the sentiment behind the items, or at least the people associated with these items, were established earlier in the movie. as well as this kind of ritual being foreshadowed. As it stands, seeing these characters destroy something meaningful to them lacks punch because the movie's pace is so damn fast that we don't know anything about them. This is the first and last we ever hear of Chol's dead dad. The only time the movie ever slows down is in extended nightmare-like chase sequences like the one coming after this moment of stupidity. So the girls apparently have to sit down with blindfolds on and ask Slender Man to return Stimpy. It's as simple as that. Ren emphasizes more than once that you have to keep the blindfold on no matter what, and not to look at Slender Man's face or it'll drive you crazy.
Keep your blindfolds on.
Bitch! I feel no sympathy. Chol, you dug your own grave here. I just don't even care what happens to you now. Kinda reminds me of another Chol, actually.
What the fuck?
That's a point I should bring up, actually. You'll notice that in this video, I didn't have a section dedicated to actually talking about the characters. Well, there's a good reason for that. And that's because they all fucking suck. But not even in the way that Slender or Always Watching's characters sucked, where they were reprehensible or just annoying. No, here they're just cardboard. The only one who kind of has anything going for her is Ren. She's an active character, she's uncovering the mystery, trying to get leads, solve clues. One of the more visually interesting sequences in the movie revolves around her, but there's one problem. She's not our main character. Macaulay is, and she's boring as shit. She seems to be allowed to emote for the first part of the movie, but after that I guess they decided to stop letting the actresses ad-lib their lines and handed them an actual copy of the script. So after that, she just knew she was beyond the point of no return. For most of the movie, she just acts like she doesn't even want to be there. I wouldn't. Chol and Stimpy have basically no characterization whatsoever. They honestly feel more like padding so the movie has people to kill off rather than characters. Stimpy is only in the movie for 13 minutes, and her only purpose is to cause the inciting incident that gets these girls investigating what happened to her. So they don't even serve a real function in the plot. They're just there to kill time until we can get to the ending when they're all dead. But it's not even like a slasher movie where they're all super annoying so you want them to die. No, they're just cardboard. I don't blame the actresses for this. Ren, on top of probably being the only halfway decent character in the movie, was also granted permission to act, if you can believe that, and her performance sells me later on as someone who's going kind of crazy trying to find the truth. Anyway, back to the forest, Chol freaks out after taking off her blindfold and runs away while the other girls look for her. She bumps into a tree and oh, that's not a tree. Something that warrants mentioning is Slender Man's design in this movie. It was actually changed up a bit from the norm. He's not just a guy in a morph suit, he actually seems to be made out of wood. It's an interesting interpretation of the character that I haven't seen elsewhere. But the problem is that both his CGI and the practical effect look pretty bad. Some scenes are downright embarrassing because of this. Why in the fuck does Tribe 12 look better than this movie? And Always Watching too, for that matter. These people have no excuse. So Chol sees Slender Man's face and comes back to the group very obviously not okay. All Macaulay has to say about this is they didn't get Stimpy back in a kind of bitchy, passive-aggressive way to Ren, as if she's the one who fucked this all up and not the girl who had literally one fucking job. There's a flashback scene after this whole affair that's a little bit gay, not gonna lie. I know girls can get really touchy-feely with their friends, but the way this is shot makes it seem a bit gay. Then the dumbest thing ever happens. So Chol is listening to music on her phone when it freaks out and she gets a video call. The video call is from Slender Man. I mean, it's hard to explain, so just look. Like, he's invisible or something, or formless altogether because he can phase through walls. He's able to transmit video images from his, perspective? How? Why, more importantly? Why would Slender Man do this? Is it to scare Chol? To scare the audience? Oh wait, I know, it's to advertise their fucking phones. Is it just a hallucination induced by madness because she saw his face? The scene ends with her looking in the mirror to see that Slender Man isn't strangling her, she's strangling herself. So was it all make-believe? I don't know, but that's kind of important information to be withholding. Okay, so why does Slender Man drive people crazy or mess them up, as the movie insists on saying? At the very end of the movie, we see his motivations for taking people. Kind of, we see the end result of the motivations at least, but he doesn't gain anything in the regard of this end result by just driving people crazy or driving them to suicide. In Marble Hornets, it was kind of implied that he made people obsessive. This benefited him because the obsession led to investigation, which led to him spreading from one person to another, like a virus.
He gets in your head like a virus.
I just said that! In this movie, he clearly does things that seem to have intent and consequences, but no real reason for them happening. Or to be more specific, reasons that seem to contradict his other actions. It's all a mess, but we haven't even seen the worst of it yet. We'll come back to that. After a bit of brooding, Man Dude asks Macaulay out on a date, but she sees Slender Man in the trees. And this is what I'm talking about. Look at how bad those tentacles look, man. Let's play a game of compare and contrast. Here's an internet web series made for free. This episode is from about 4 years prior to this movie's release. Here's a blockbuster horror movie with a $10 million budget. I'm guessing the money went into this chest-mounted Steadicam. They seem to get their mileage out of it. Then we get the scene in the library, which most people who have seen the movie will say is probably the best scene in it, and I'm inclined to agree. At the very least, it's visually interesting, and it's full of the impossible geometry we've all come to see and love from Slender Man series, but in the end, it's totally pointless. It's just there for no reason aside from what Ren actually researches before the decent part starts. Also, there's some dumb shit I hate in it, like there's another fake jump scare where she sees this librarian, and then there's this part where, oh my god, what's wrong with your face? She's researching Slender Man, again establishing her as the only character actively taking measures to try and stop this from getting worse, instead of going on dates with Varsity Jacket McSquarejaw over here. On top of a book that's going to be important in a little bit, we get one of the original Victor Surge images, and some other ones with blatantly noticeable photoshopping done. Look at the smudges on those tentacles. You couldn't do better than that? It's everything else she researches that interests me, because I think the writer realized that they haven't really established how Slender Man works very well. So Ren looks at a bunch of related topics and similar characters or creatures, like the Pied Piper, Shadow People, and so on. I think this is just shorthand writing to give the audience an idea of how Slender Man works without having to actually put the effort in to integrate that information organically. What's weird is they kind of already did that on a base level at the beginning with Chol reading off his wiki bio. The problem is, the movie is just repeating itself with information we already know, when it's adding new shit that it doesn't explain or clarify either. Like this sacrificing your beloved possessions to bring your friend back. That's only ever referenced in passing by Ren, who apparently heard it from Alley Cat off screen. And they'll add some more too that's not brought up here. We're still coming back to that. After the incident in the library, Ren comes back to Macaulay and talks to her about the book she found that apparently relates to Slender Man's effects on his victims. She heavily emphasizes self-mutilation and suicide. Let's keep that in mind for later. Ren convinces Macaulay to go to Chol's house to try and see what the fuck is up with her, since she hasn't been to school since what happened in the woods. They see Chol at her house, and she's acting kind of like a weird zombie. I think she's been fucking around with her mom's makeup too. That's not how you apply eyeliner, Chol. Ren and Macaulay talk things out, and Macaulay has just kind of had enough of all this shit, and walks away despite Ren's warnings that Slender Man is already after her. She just doesn't know it yet. Ren also drops the single allotted F-bomb allowed in this movie. Yes, this movie is rated PG-13. I'll talk about that in a bit because it becomes relevant soon. Macaulay goes on her date with Man-Dude, and his parents are gone? They're home alone together. Oh my gosh, how scandalous. This is a Slender Man movie, by the way. Then the funniest thing in the movie happens. So they're on the couch, and they're getting busy. Like, dude is getting the fuck in there. Like, violently sucking on her face. And then...
Yeah, it's good, right?
Yeah, hear those sweet licks, baby? I'm about to get some sweet licks in on you. If you know what I'm saying. The hell, man? And I fucking died in real life. It's just so bad. This doesn't even warrant analysis. You can see everything wrong with it yourselves. After that, the two calm down and Man-Dude brings up Slender Man and casually finds the evil summoning video. Anyone can find it, apparently. Macaulay tells him not to watch the fucking video. Like, seriously, just don't watch it. Nothing good will come of it. Promise me you won't watch the video. Anyway, after he watches the video, they go to science class the next day and, oh hey, I saw the scene in the trailer. This is where Chol stabs her fucking eye out with a scalpel, and then the scene just fucking ends. All we find out is that Man-Dude watched the video, and then he's just never in the movie again. You know who else is never in the movie again? Fucking Chol. Even though the science class is performing a dissection on eyeballs, which would perfectly segue into Chol stabbing her own eye and follow up on Ren emphasizing self-mutilation and suicide earlier, it never happens. I swear to God, they just took all the shots that had Chol in them out and ended the scene like nothing even happened, even though it's obvious that's where the scene was meant to go from the trailer. In fact, a lot of footage from the trailer is missing from this movie. Here's a quick recap of everything in the trailer that's not in the movie. It also seems to include the suicide of Man-Dude, which would also explain why he's nowhere to be seen for the rest of the movie. His death was cut too. This movie went through re-edits, and I think I know why. I can't prove this, but I think that the scene with Chol stabbing her eye out and likely killing herself in the process would have led to this movie being too graphic for a PG-13 rating. This kind of crap is happening more and more in Hollywood lately. In 2014, a remake was released of the movie RoboCop. Now, RoboCop is famous for its over-the-top violence and hard R rating, so naturally, the remake was released PG-13 and had everything toned down significantly. This also happens to a lot of horror movies. PG-13 is the go-to rating because Hollywood executives know that the biggest audience for these cheaply made shitty horror movies is young teenagers. That goes double for Slender Man, as he's very popular among young audiences. I mean, hell, I was still in high school when I first heard of them. I couldn't have seen a Slender Man movie on my own back then if it was R-rated. So basically, Sony catapulted Chol and what was probably a decent scene out of the movie because they wanted to sell as many tickets as possible to dumb teenagers who didn't want to see this movie with their mommies and daddies. At least that's my theory. They probably could have just removed the F-bomb and been fine with that, but they were probably too lazy to do reshoots. So Macaulay tries to message this Alley Cat person for more assistance, but their account has been terminated, so that's another character gone from the movie. It's also important to mention that Alley Cat seems to have had some content removed from the movie too. We see her face later on in the movie, and here she can be seen in the trailer leaving scribblings on some wall and coming out of a forest holding something. So she had content cut too, but I can't see why because there's so little information to go on. Maybe they just wanted to save all the interesting stuff for an unrated Blu-ray release to make some extra sales. Judging from the trailer, her role seems to have been pretty extensive, so I have no idea why it was cut. It looks like it might have even been interesting, but I can understand why it was cut. Interesting doesn't really do so well with focus groups. Macaulay has another extended nightmare sequence, and here's the pregnancy imagery I was talking about earlier. It's just from this nightmare hallucination thing. Maybe Alley Cat's plot was related to pregnancy in some way, and that's how we would have gotten some payoff for all this. Again, we'll never know. Teen pregnancy is an uncomfortable topic, so naturally it makes sense to cut out things that make people uncomfortable from a horror movie. Good job, Sony. Once the nightmare ends, seriously, these nightmares and hallucinations make up like 40% of the movie's runtime, Macaulay finds that Sister is having a fucking seizure or panic attack in her room. It's the third act, and the movie's realized it ran itself out of characters to kill, so it drags Sister back out even though we haven't even seen her since the house got broken into by Stimpy's dad. Well done, movie. Once at the hospital, Macaulay has yet another nightmare sequence, but this one in slow motion. And considering the hospital setting, it reminds me a bit too much of Clockwork. Oh my god. Why? Hello, my name is Dr. Slenderman. Just kidding, I'm a normal doctor. No need to worry. She imagines Sister as being dead, and we go through pretty much the only interesting visuals the movie has to offer besides the library sequence in a brief montage before the real Sister is dragged out screaming, saying he had no face. Now, my immediate prediction was that Ren showed her the video, and I was right. Macaulay goes through Sister's laptop and finds a video Ren took of Sister about to summon Slenderman, where she incriminatingly shows her fucking face. Also, Macaulay's family's last name is apparently Knudsen, which is Victor Surge's real last name, just in case you forgot he dragged his own name through the mud by associating himself with this dumpster fire. Macaulay goes to confront Ren at her house and finds a bunch of drawings of Slenderman and one more drawing of note, a girl removing her own eye. So yeah, even though the scene of Chol cutting her eye out was apparently removed, the lasting effects of it still remain. It's painfully easy to see how haphazardly it was cut out. Wait, that's a pun, isn't it? We see that Ren has been busy with more than just drawing. She's got a full-on map looking for patterns and disappearances, and probably the most racially diverse list of missing posters I've ever seen. Among her findings is Alley Cat's real name and face. I imagine this point of the movie is when we get the payoff for this reveal, but whatever, it's just kind of tacked on now. Ren is outside about to kill herself, probably out of guilt for Sister becoming infected, but Macaulay manages to pull her back to safety. Then Ren says something that makes no sense and makes me question the entire rest of this movie and many of the events that precede it. So basically, what Ren says is that in order to save Sister, Macaulay needs to sacrifice herself to Slenderman. To quote her,
"You can't just give him something you love. Not enough. He wants us. He wants us."
Here's the thing with that. That makes no fucking sense. It's been well established by this point in the movie that once you see the video or summon Slenderman in any way, he's got you and there's no way out. Except this weird sacrificial ritual that I'm still not clear on whether or not that should have or would have worked if Chol didn't fuck it up for everyone. So why the hell would sacrificing yourself be sufficient if you're already on his list? It's not like there's any rules for this shit. Slenderman just takes you when he feels like it. So Slenderman would be giving up one person he's already got in his clutches for another person he's already got in his clutches, but only when they willingly sacrifice themselves? Is he that desperate to get them earlier than he normally would? That would be like your boss coming up to you and saying, "Hey, I'll give you tomorrow's paycheck today if you forfeit your next paycheck after that." Why not just be patient and get both paychecks? And again, there's no rules here. Slenderman doesn't even need to be patient. He could just kill both of them whenever he wants. Even then, when Macaulay does eventually go to sacrifice herself, she is far from willing once he reveals his extendo Dr. Octopus arms, and God, it looks dumb. I was half expecting the movie to end in a fucking boss fight here. Also, how does Slenderman know who to save when Macaulay sacrifices herself? It could be Sister, or Ren, or Stimpy, but he just knows she's talking about Sister. See, this is why you need rules in a horror movie. You watch the video and in 7 days, you die. But if you show it to someone else, the curse is lifted from you and moved on to them. Simple. He only attacks you in your dreams, but if you die in the dream, you die for real. Simple. These create limitations to your monster or villain while also creating genuine tension and an obvious fail state scenario. Here, the pattern of death is random. Stimpy dies like a week after watching the video. Chol doesn't die because she sees his face, except when she obviously does die in the cut scenes. It looks like Man-Dude would have died around the same time and he just watched the video the day before. There's no consistency or pattern, so all we can assume is that he's just sadistically breaking them down and tormenting them before killing them in whatever order he wants. And speaking of Chol seeing his face, why did Alley Cat say this ritual would work? I'm not even asking where she got the information that it would work. Why would she say it in the first place if the movie is very clear on its stance that it wouldn't have worked even if Chol didn't screw it up? Did she tell Ren that it was really sacrificing themselves that would work against Slenderman to save someone? Or did Ren come to that conclusion on her own somehow? Why was she about to kill herself then? Why not sacrifice herself to save Sister or Macaulay or even Stimpy? Was she not in control of her own actions when trying to kill herself? Also, Alley Cat is the one who posted the summoning video in the first place. So she is actively spreading the virus, and yet she's also the one who's been giving everyone advice and talking them through how to stop Slenderman. Has she been intentionally misleading them, and is that why the ritual didn't work? Well, no, that can't be right, because she warns against looking at him directly in the face because it'll drive you insane, and that's exactly what happened to Chol. So why would she be selectively helpful if she's trying to mislead them? I have not seen one single line of dialogue completely fuck a movie script in a seriously long time. It makes no sense at all. And that's basically the rest of the movie, by the way. The girls get a video call from Slenderman again, and they both see it, so it wasn't a hallucination. This is actually an ability of his. Ren gets pulled out of the house by branch tentacles. Macaulay goes into the woods and sacrifices herself to Slenderman, and after turning into Dr. Octopus and chasing her around to pad things out so this movie is technically feature length, he makes her become part of some tree in a sufficiently body horror type fashion. So that's what he's been doing to the people he kidnaps. He turns them into trees. Kind of. He doesn't turn them into new trees, he just attaches them to existing ones? It's kind of unclear. But Sister is saved from the curse, and nobody lives happily ever after because this movie exists. This non-character that only existed to serve as conflict for the final act of the movie ends it off with maybe the stupidest line ever.
It's all spreading his word, you know?
And that's it. The movie is thankfully over. Well, we've done it. We've tackled the Slenderman movies. The fact that we've had 3 consecutive years worth of content for this little tradition of ours is astounding. I know some other people have made their own Slenderman movies, but they're usually small scale, low budget home movies that are only released online. Slender, Always Watching, and this travesty expected you to pay money for them. But I think it's probably time to say goodbye to Slenderman movies. It's been a good 3 years, but Halloween is a bigger holiday than one spooky slim fella. I mean, if next year brings along some surprises, we'll see. But for right now, that's Sony's Slenderman. I'm honestly not even sure where I'd rank it in regards to the other 2 movies I've seen. Each of them has so many problems that they all felt like any difference in quality is too insignificant to note. And I'm not the only one who felt so strongly about how shit this movie is. It received scathing reviews all across the board and currently holds a whopping 8% on Rotten Tomatoes. Damn. Even the audience score is low. 20% enjoyed it. So this isn't like a Last Jedi thing with a massive difference in critic and audience opinion. No one liked this movie. Burke's screenplay is as devoid of personality as the faceless cipher stalking its heroes. Perhaps that's one way to kill off Slender Man. Make his story so dull that no one cares. Idiot, stupid, dumb movie for dumb, stupid idiots. These sum up my feelings on the movie pretty well. Nonsense plot, characters so flat they made me feel immense pity for the poor actresses forced to play them, terrible dialogue, it's chopped up to hell, and it's mostly boring as shit. This is the biggest recurring theme between all the Slender Man movies. They're all boring and lame. The best thing I can say about the movie is that it sometimes has neat visuals, there's a couple funny moments, and the pace is so lightning fast that it's not as big of a slog to get through as the other two movies. I was at least able to watch it in one sitting without having to pause and reevaluate my entire life. You know your movie is in a bad place though, when the biggest compliment you can give it is it gets itself over with quickly. So Sony, I hope you're proud of yourselves. From the looks of things, you've made your money back, so I can't wait to see the creepypasta cinematic universe you guys are sure to come out with. I'll see you all next year when I review the Rake movie that— wait, what the fuck, that's real? Thanks for watching my review. While you look at these wonderful donor names, be sure to check out the links to my Twitter, my Patreon, and my video game channel. I'll see you all next time when we finally get back to reviewing creepypastas.